Welcome back, Science 10. This is the beginning of CD2, which is investigate the mechanisms that influence Earth's climate system, including the role of the natural greenhouse effect. So the first part, two parts of the CD2 section will involve two sets of notes, the textbook, and answering questions. And then the last two parts will involve two inquiry labs, one dealing with looking at the angle of incidence and rate of temperature change, and the last one dealing with the greenhouse effect. So this first part, introduction, climate results from interactions among the components of the biosphere. And the biosphere, sphere of course you know what shape that is, and bio means living, so a living area here, and of course that living area is the Earth, the area of Earth that is capable of supporting life. So this first part here talks about looking at ice core samples, analyzing data in the Arctic's climate, and of course they can dig down fairly deep and look at certain sections in time when they take out kind of like a pole shape amount of ice, and they can see what has happened over thousands of years. Okay, and of course this helps to understand what was the Earth's climate thousands of years ago, and looking at the causes and potential consequences of climate change itself. So to start off with there, you may have heard climate and weather, and the terms to a lay person may seem identical. What's the difference? Weather refers to the conditions of temperature, air pressure, cloud cover, precipitation, which is rain or snow, and humidity that occur at a particular place at a particular time. For example, today the weather in your area could be cold and sunny, but tomorrow the weather could be overcast and warmer. So whether we're talking about the day-to-day issues that happen outside. Climate, however, is the average weather conditions that occur in a region over a long period of time, and usually we're talking about a minimum of 30 years. So over a long time period, how has the weather changed day by day? To describe the climate of Alberta, for example, and yes, the material I have here is Alberta-based, so there's a lot of reference to Alberta. So to describe the climate of Alberta, for example, you might say that the average temperature in summer ranges from 14 to 20 degrees and winter from -24 to -9. And the annual precipitation is 442 millimeters. So that would be, of course, over 30 years we're talking about. There's highs, there's lows, and you can see the separation between the temperatures there and also precipitation. Why is it important to know about climate? What role does climate play in our lives and the lives of other organisms which we share our planet? In this section you'll find out about the central role that climate plays in keeping Earth a place that can support life, i.e. the biosphere. You will also learn about some evidence scientists have found indicates that our climate is in fact changing, and consider some of the consequences climate change may have. So the first section here with D1-2, climate. If you ever travel between places with different climates, you have some idea how climate affects your life. Your daily activities, clothing choices, even what you eat can change in areas with different climates. Climate also affects all other living organisms on Earth, not just humans. So climate affects life. So here they refer to Alberta's climate as 4 seasons. In general, summers are warm, winters are cold, etc., etc. The Northwest Territories, which share Alberta's northernmost border, are generally a lot colder than Alberta. How do differences in climate affect people's daily lives? So of course there's a lot of things there, clothing, food choice, etc. According to Stats Canada, in 2001 Alberta had a population of 3,064,249 people in an area of this many square kilometers, which is an average of 4.8 people per square kilometer. In the same year, the Northwest Territories had only 42,000 in a much larger area. Similar patterns seen worldwide. Regions with severe climate tend to have fewer people than regions with moderate climate. So severe cold, etc., a lot less people. One reason that fewer people live in these areas is that severe climate causes additional changes to your everyday life. People cannot survive outdoors in extreme heat or extreme cold without adequate clothing. In Alberta's climate, people need one set of clothing to protect them from summer and a second set for winter, of course. Even with adequate clothing, people live in severe climates must seek shelter after a relatively short time in order to avoid injuries such as frostbite or sunburn. Their shelter must also suit the climate. Albertans' homes usually have some form of heating device and a furnace throughout the winter, and in summer heating is seldom used. Homes in Alberta have a well-insulated and tightly sealed windows and doors to help keep temperature indoors different from the outdoors, and of course could also have air conditioning. The climate of Alberta also causes Albertans to use more fuel and spend more money to heat their homes than people that live in milder climate zones. For example, homes in regions of California often have only a space heater. The climate is so mild that residents may use their space heaters only for a few days in the year. Californians therefore use much less fuel and spend less money for home heating than Albertans. People in warmer climate may use more fuel or spend more money with air conditioning, however. Homes must also be able to withstand the amount and type of precipitation of a climate zone, whereas some homes in Alberta must be able to withstand considerable weight of snow that can fall during winter. Homes in areas with heavy rainfall, such as parts of Brazil, must be able to withstand heavy rain conditions. Climate can determine the type of foods that are available in a region, and the cost of that food is generally more expensive to buy fresh fruit in northern Alberta in January than it is in Florida. For example, most trees are unable to withstand the climate conditions of northern Alberta, so fruit is transported into the region, and of course we have those transportation costs from Florida, which adds to the cost of the fruit. The economic opportunities for an area can also be affected by climate. Think again about examples of producing fruit in regions of Canada with warmer climates, such as the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia or Niagara region of Ontario. Fruit production is an important part of the economy. The economies of regions with colder climates, such as Fort Fitzgerald near Alberta's northernmost border, have little or no agricultural components. Tourism and recreation industries can also be affected by climate. Activities such as skiing or ice fishing are possible only in regions with cold winters. People in regions such as the Caribbean islands depend on year-round warmth of their climate to attract tourism interested in swimming and sunbathing, etc. So that is how climate affects human beings. So any shifts in climate, for example, in southern Alberta where skiing happens a lot with tourism, if it is warmer than usual, it may be more difficult to ski. Climate also affects all organisms. Climate affects environmental conditions, and so all living things in any region are affected by climate. The species of plant that can survive in a region are determined by climate. However, some characteristics of plants and animals can make them more suited or less suited to a particular area. And that, of course, is an adaptation. An adaptation is any change in the structure or functioning of an organism that makes it more suited to its environment. Different plants and animals have various adaptations that make them more suited or less suited to a particular climate. Think about plants and animals in Alberta. How are they suited for Alberta's climate? How would their adaptations affect the ability to live in other climates? Plant life in Alberta must be able to survive the seasonal changes in the climate. For example, many plants undergo a period of dormancy during the winter. Dormancy, of course, is a period in which the growth of the plant ceases or becomes very slow. Deciduous trees such as poplars shed their leaves when they go dormant. This helps to protect them from freezing and minimizes the amount of moisture they need. Plants cannot use frozen water, so winter is also a period of extreme dryness. Plants in Alberta will flower and reproduce only when temperatures are warmer and more moisture is available during the spring and summer. In contrast, the climate in some tropical regions is warm and moist all year round. Plants in such tropical areas do not undergo dormancy. Tropical plants continue to go year-round, and many also reproduce throughout the year. Many plants in tropical climates cannot survive long dry periods up here in the north, whereas plants found in dry climates are often unable to tolerate super wet conditions. The native animal life of a region is also affected by climate. Through food webs, plants ultimately supply food energy to all other organisms in a region. Earth's different regions therefore support different species of animal. For example, grizzly bears can find food in Alberta's mountains but would be less able to find food in the desert. Animals also have adaptations to make them more suited to particular environment conditions. So grizzlies can put on as much as 200 kilograms of fat during the summer months. This fat layer helps to insulate their organs from the cold of winter. That's amazing, 200 kilograms of fat. As well as providing fuel. Grizzlies also make a den in a protected spot, such as a cave, and become extremely inactive during winter. Contrast these adaptations with those of an animal native to a tropical region, the green iguana. The green iguana is cold-blooded, so it seeks out sunlight when the temperature is too cold and finds shade when the temperature is too warm. Instead of fur and insulating fat, the iguana just simply has a thick, water-resistant skin to protect it from the warm, wet climate of its home. Green iguanas are active all year round since the seasons do not have significant changes in temperatures. So you can see how plants and animals are affected. If you look down here, here's comparing the Arctic wolf, trumpeter swan, purple lilac. So they have particular adaptations for their homes. For example, the Arctic wolf has a white coat, which provides camouflage against ice and snow, so prey cannot see it coming. And of course, the thick coat helps it keep warm. The trumpeter swan nests only in wetland areas, which provides food and protection for its young. The purple lilac blooms very early in the spring at the first hint of warmth before many other plants. So you can see the plants and animals that live in a particular region have adapted to that region and are suited to that region. If you take them out and put them in another region, they likely would not survive. Okay, that'll be the end of part 1 of this video. We'll look at part 2. We'll look at climate change in particular.